All right, guys, thank you so much for coming out. First of all, I'm sure you're already as tired as I am. All this fun is draining and certainly is well fed. This really represents the height of the Tableau experience for us employees, for our customers. And it's actually a pretty good reference point in thinking about Drive, because what we're trying to do is to build this culture of analytics, this feeling that you have here. We'd like to bring that to your company. And when you look at here and you see all the things that are going on, think about it in terms of a framework of support and encouragement, right? And what does that mean? That means that you're seeing inspiring things that really makes you want to be more creative and to explore data. And you're also experiencing that with a backdrop of doctors and experts and so forth that are providing you support. And that makes you more willing to take risks, right? When we know that there's a nice place to land. When you think about Drive, that's really what it's about. It's a framework of support and encouragement. Today we're going to talk about why is it, and why do it, why Drive. Then we're going to talk about the framework briefly. It's covered more in greater length on our website, tableausoftware.com/drive. And then we're going to turn things over to Mike Hetrick, who's a service principal out of Virginia and has some experience working with some folks in this room doing implementing Drive programs. And then I'm really delighted to announce a new offering that we're going to be releasing early next year around Drive, and it's called Launchpad. So hold on to your seats. There are only 20 people in the world who even know it exists, and thank you all for coming, and I'm really looking forward to getting some feedback, some business cards afterwards if you're interested in that kind of thing. Maybe we can get you into some beta programs. All right, so why Drive? So when you think about using Tableau, just to make things a little less chaotic, I'm not going to ask. Oh, okay. What words come to mind when you think about Tableau? Using Tableau, your experiences with Tableau. Okay. Visual. Answering questions. Fun. Empowering. Easy. Awesome. Awesome. Interactive. So these words are how people who've downloaded the software, gone to our website, explored the videos, really taken it upon themselves to pick up this amazing creative tool and do amazing things with it. And at every organization, you're going to have a subset of folks who will do that on their own. The thrill of the experience of getting in and exploring their data, and of trying new tools, and of stumbling and getting up, these experiences, what doesn't kill them makes them stronger. They love it. And I'm a techie, and I'm like that. And I love the challenge of picking up something new and learning and experiencing it myself. Not everyone in the organization feels that way. Okay? So I'm just going to set up a little contrast that doing analytics for fun and the thrill and the learning and all the real business benefits is different than doing analytics at scale. And our own lives are improved using Tableau, and we feel that way, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more. But if we really want to affect analytic culture across the organization, we have to think about how we set up the program office to deliver this capability not to a handful of people, but to hundreds or thousands of people. And that takes a deliberate approach. So let's just think about some terms we associate with analytics for fun, right? It's primarily an individual effort. It's a self-starting effort. You heard about Tableau from somebody, you went and you downloaded the trial with or without IT support, you installed it, you watched some videos. For the most part, you're using data that's your own, or data that you've, by hook or crook, got off the IT system. Perhaps you have, there's some leniency in your organization, or you work for IT, so you do have access to enterprise data. But by and large, when you look around your company, you're looking at a handful of superstars, of data rock stars, who are doing Tableau and delivering amazing value, but you're not seeing everyone using Tableau as they might Excel, for instance. I don't want to take away from the oohs and the ahs, the appreciation you're going to get from executives for your dashboards, but at the end of the day, you're on your own, right? You're fending for yourself. Now, to scale up this activity, we need to start thinking about building community. And you're experiencing community right here. You're experiencing community on the Tableau forums. You're experiencing community in the Tableau user groups. Okay? But not everyone in the company goes to those things. So we need to think about creating community in your organization. We also have to understand that at a certain point, you need IT's help to prepare data, which is the first kind of division of labor. You're also going to need their help to set up systems, like whether it's help desk or your discussion forums internally, your procedures and processes for getting new licenses, for promoting content to production, and so forth. You're going to need their help. You're going to also need to access enterprise data. And the enterprise data has every right to be governed by IT. It's their job, right? So we can't stay in the dark, in the shadows, on the sidelines. We need to go where the big data pipes are. We also need a systemic approach to skill building. So while for you it might be okay to look at the generic demos on our website, and that's not intimidating, you can relate that to your job function. For many people in the organization, they want to see training collateral on their own data in a way that they can relate to more easily. Right? And they're not going to fend for themselves. You know that there are large numbers of people in your organization who could really benefit from this experience that you have, but they're not as courageous as you, and if they don't have support and encouragement, they're going to quit. And in order to deploy this at scale, they're going to need to get over that learning hump to a point where the benefit for them exceeds the cost in time and frustration, and for most people, that takes time. Now, with Tableau, we can get there a whole lot faster than any software on the market. I came from Business Objects and Cognos, very powerful tools, but not tools that I would want to spend my day using, right? So there's a lot in the box that's going to be helpful, but not everything. So what's the big bogey? What's all this for, right? And I have a framework of 4 things that I think this is all about, and it's kind of a useful framework for thinking about analytic culture. And it encompasses knowledge, participation, engagement, and thinking. Now let's just talk plainly about knowledge, because we're all coming from places where there was this huge report backlog. Why does that report backlog exist? Because people need to know. They do. And there's nothing unimportant, trivial about creating a very ordinary report that conveys information, right? Just not everything needs to be gorgeous to be valuable. And there's typically lots of things where people they haven't analyzed it. They often have the data, but it's just impossible to get all that analysis through the IT pipeline, right? So let's be out and open and say, bushwhacking through that backlog and getting a baseline understanding of who, what, where, why, how in your organization is important, okay? Now, when we talk about culture, we sort of start talking about the psychology of all this, okay? Now, we all understand that the executives want to know those things, okay? But why should we care about whether our peers know those things, right? And the psychology research talks about, as humans, 2 counterposing ideas. One is this desire to be curious, right? If you introduce a new object in a room, a puppy will go up and examine it and look at it. And humans will say, wow, that's interesting, let's check it out, right? So we're curious. We're also very anxious about, about not understanding what's going on, When my favorite news channel pops up that banner, breaking news, I'm like Pavlov's dog, right? Like, what happened? What went on, right? Because I feel a sense of insecurity and anxiety if I don't have that knowledge, right? So that's the basic psychology of it. Now, how does that affect the culture in the organization around the idea of decision-making? So we all talk about data-driven decision-making. So why is that important, right? So if you're making decisions without data, what are you making decisions on? You're making decisions on opinions, often power. And although you might be right, those decisions don't carry a lot of legitimacy because people aren't going to believe you, right? And that gets to the third point, second point, participation. But briefly, if you followed this notion of systems thinking in the management literature, you probably heard of Peter Senge, the fifth discipline, or you've read the Toyota culture. And it's all about respect for employees, and it's about understanding root cause. So when you have enough data to be able to drill to root cause, then people are going to be less likely to be resentful about the final decisions you make, and they're going to be those decisions are going to be more correct. They're going to be more effectual because you're actually addressing the root of the problem, and you're going to address the totality of the problem because problems can span departments. If Tableau sales go down, is it the problem because people like me are lazy? Or do we have a product defect? Or is our marketing not good enough? Or is our support lagging in some way? So, when we're interested in systems thinking, that requires a lot of information. Okay? Now let's talk about participation. So it's pretty interesting as we sort of look at the competitive landscape. There are folks coming around and saying, well, we'll give you your answers, and they'll just pop up like a number on the screen, right? So Matt, it's, boom, here it is, it's Watson. You just talked to me, and it's telling me the answer. So, go through the thought experiment. What if all the answers showed up in like a bottle on your beach, right? Or like a manila envelope came. Like, could you manage to turn your workforce to do some action plan you came up with based on information that experts gave to you? And contrast that with the idea that if people in your organization have a hand in developing that analysis, or at a minimum, can see the whole lineage of your arguments, both through multiple dashboards and stories, understand what you looked at and found useful, but what you looked at and found not useful. We all want to know why and to be convinced. And so a platform and the ability to democratize data through Tableau is going to gin up participation in the organization, and that's crucial for legitimacy. And you think about, what was the Lincoln quote? Something like, nobody can demand anyone to serve another. Leader's not a leader without followers. That kind of thing. So we really need to develop a program that encourages participation, that allows follow-through and execution, which at the end of the day is just as important as insights. It's bringing the organization around to affect change. Now let's talk about engagement briefly. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that I was such like a whirlish dynamo, I could get you all the knowledge you wanted using tools I sold in my prior life. Okay? So I'm just extremely dedicated. As it is, I live in my office, and my wife puts pizza under the door from time to time, you can see. But how does that help the organization, right? So when we talked about what the Tableau experience meant to you a few minutes ago, the word fun came up, and we always, at Tableau, we keep coming back to that because this is an engaging experience, right? So why is Tableau engaging? Our sales model, download it, try it, you'll like it. So why does that work, right? So Francois talked about our core beliefs today, and we believe in the creativity of people. There are some other beliefs that didn't quite make the keynote, things like flow. Has anyone heard about flow? Okay, so there was a psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who came up with this idea of flow, and he was trying to explain why it is that artists, when they do their thing, they get into this trance, or like you've seen violinists sort of in the zone, or sports people who are very, very focused. What gets us into that state of engagement? Psychologically, what does it, right? It turns out that it's this place between, it's a Goldilocks place where our ability meets the challenge. And that challenge continues to grow as our ability grows. So if if your experience is like mine, when you started with Tableau, you had a couple good clicks, right? And then you sort of went into this terror place where you're like, oh, what are all these menus? And then you learned a little more, and then you became a little more comfortable, and you're doing more. And that process goes on and again. And what happens as we go through a flow activity is we're getting better at it and then challenging ourselves to do more. It turns out that that's pretty crucial to human happiness. We really like being in that state. There's something else that Tableau gives us that is really important for our engagement and commitment in the office, and that is the ability to not wait on other people to get our jobs done. It gives us a certain amount of autonomy. And the research says that the number one reason people get frustrated at their job is because they're blocked, right? So we're providing what the research calls autonomy. And then there's another aspect called community. And community is that connectedness we talked about that's important. And when we're part of an analytic community, we're actually sharing new dimensions of relationships in the organization, which is really powerful and important to us. Mastery and growth is one of them, and it sort of aligns with flow, right? And the idea that we are learning. So when I think about high school and college, I think about my mind always being twisted and challenged and so forth, and my work life not so much, right? So with Tableau and this process of analysis that we're all in, we're learning every day, and not only about visualizations, we're learning about statistics, we're learning about our own business and stuff, and that's powerful. The final thing is purpose, right? So I love how my friend Chuck Dresniak talks about the Army. He says the folks who are loading material out of Iraq had a very different attitude toward their job when they knew where their tanks were going, right? Because basically they set up a caravan and they had bandages and tents and tanks and the rest of the stuff. They're just loading them on ships as they came, right? But after Chuck did the MCOP analysis of where the equipment was going once it came to the U.S., they said, hey, wait, we don't need tanks right now. We need bandages, and they're going to this other war zone. And he found that it aligned people with the purpose of the organization much better. So when we have transparency around what's going on and we see how our jobs impact others, and others can look at your dashboards and see how their work impacts, it brings us happiness. It brings us purpose. Finally, I think about thinking as a separate item. It sort of comes with engagement a little bit. But there's no doubt that when you're using Tableau, you are exercising your brain. And it's sort of like, if you will, luminosity. We're comparing, we're contrasting, we're thinking, we're hypothesizing. At the end of the day, one of the hallmarks of an analytic culture is an organization where people are asking questions. They're always challenging. They're always thinking. And when the tools themselves are really hard to use, people stop asking questions. Right? What does that do to the culture of the organization when you're just going through the motions and you're not asking why, right? And just think about what changes when everyone is asking why and working together to drill to root cause. I mean, we know Metcalfe's law about networks, that more people that are engaged and active in the network, it increases by like the size, knowledge in the network increases geometrically at the size of the network, something like that. I need to research my metaphors before talking to big groups. All right. So that's why do it. All right. So are we on the way to culture change? Okay. When most people, they download Tableau and they get started in an organization, initially it's this honeymoon of simple, easy, beautiful, right? Then we do what we euphemistically call organic growth. Right? Everyone's done that, right? Organic growth. Love it. Download more of it. Sales guy, need more licenses. You know, like the pollen, it just, you know, spreads, right? And then what? So this is the reward for not doing Tableau programmatically and thoughtfully, is a patchwork of workbooks. IT saying, wait a second, this isn't my standard. I'm not giving you access to data. You didn't ask my permission. You're putting me in an uncomfortable position because you're effectively ambushing me. You're locking me into this new thing. My server's overloaded. I mean, I have customers today who have stopped Tableau adoption simply because they never budgeted for the server. They basically passed a tin cup when it came to getting it done. It has no executive support. And so they're stuck, right? The people who are doing awesome work are unappreciated. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're sort of sneaking around doing great work, people aren't going to talk about it as much as if it's part of your job description. You know, you don't want to have to apologize for doing awesome work. You want to be celebrated. You want to be rewarded for it. And I think the cardinal sin of doing Tableau deployments wrong is that you're going to end up wasting time and discouraging users. The most valuable thing we have in the knowledge economy is the time of each and every employee. And if you're asking them to try something and your implementation's half-baked and they get frustrated, it's a double whammy. You wasted their time and you've demotivated them, which is the worst thing we can do in our companies. So what's the alternative? And there's no wrong time to do this. I would, earlier is better, but if you're late, still do it. Preparation and prototyping. Plan a project. Identify champions across the organization. Identify critical data governance issues. Provide a gallery of wonderful reports that people can look at. Document best practices. And by the way, all these presentations are going to be on the conference site, so you'll be able to download them. I'm sorry if the text is small. Capacity and foundation building. I talked earlier about the problem of being able to support a large community with an under-resourced practice. So let's build a practice that can scale up. Let's create reusable boot camps and enablement collateral. Let's create skills belts so people can get a sense of how well they're doing. What's bronze, what's silver, what's gold. Let's build a wiki guide on the intranet to help people understand what's going on, who to contact when they need help, what to do. Community resources, staff and budget. We want those things to be adequately resourced and supported. And then we are free to scale up, right? And scaling up is the fun part. Because we don't want to open a store without a kitchen. But once we have the kitchen and the menu and we have a supplier relationship, we know we're not going to run out of food, then we can start doing fun marketing things, right, to get people in the door. We can create events with excitement. We can have wraparound support. We can have, we call it drive team sprints, which is a clinical description of a work group where people are doing analysis in real time and Tableau is part of meetings and so forth. And we can enjoy fast performance, access to the data we need, a relationship with IT that allows them to do what they're good at and allows us in the business to do what we're good at, and doesn't expect too much from them in certain areas and a lot in others, and same with business. So we want you to take the green path, and we developed a methodology by reverse engineering around the basic questions that end user is going to have. And we talked to our customers and found out what they were doing to support these things. And it turns out that the customers a number of years ago who said, Tableau isn't just fast, easy, beautiful. Tableau is an enterprise standard tool. And here is how we deploy enterprise tools, as if it was an ERP system or Salesforce or something. They don't just throw it out there. They have programmatic support. And they have answers to all these questions. What do I do next? What do I do? How do I get a license? What happens if I get stuck? Where can I get? What data is available? Why is this important? You have answers to these questions before they get their license. And so we formalized that into a 4-step methodology we call Drive, and it will be familiar to anyone who's implemented almost anything. And the first step, the discovery, is really, are we ready to go or not? And do we have the people on board who we're going to need at the finish line? I mean, let's just not, this is not a streaking operation. We need lots and lots of people all on the same page in unison together. And then once we have our support, then we can go into prototyping. And prototyping is culling best practices and leveraging best practices. And you've got a lot of the reports that you're going to use for prototyping already. We just want to make sure we have enough experts supporting you or in-house that you're building on best practices, not bad practices. Okay? And then we have foundation building, which is that IT infrastructure that we talked about for enabling at scale. And then scale out, which is the fun stuff. We put all this collateral up on our website, tableau.com/drive. Check it out if you haven't already. There's an especially fun little 6-minute animation. And if they're kind of skeptics and you need a quick hit on, you know, why do Tableau and why do Drive, I would send them to this page. It's pretty cool and visual and fun in the way you see cartoon art on the internet. So Drive is 5 big ideas. Business owns the creative and analytic work. IT is empowered to do what they do best. Great visualizations, the things that we love that are here, we're trying to fine-tune. Those are the beginning. They're not the end, right? That's the seed from which the tree grows. And we can coddle the seed. That's wonderful. But we really want that tree to grow, and we want to leverage that amazing work to inspire others. So Drive itself provides a plan, which itself is pretty interesting. I mean, for a company like Tableau, whose mantra is fast, easy, beautiful, for us to provide an enterprise adoption plan, I think speaks to the character of the company and the foresight of the leadership. We launched it very quietly last year, but we launched it very publicly. And, you know, it certainly makes me feel good that we're there to support you, our champions, in doing this right, thoroughly, thoughtfully, and appropriately. We're not asking anyone to do anything unnatural vis-a-vis IT or business. Because we've put it to paper and talked about it, we've now created a language for talking about scaling your analytic culture, and that it allows partners to sell services that align with Drive, and allows us all to kind of relate to what they're talking about, because we're all working from a common framework. At this point, I want to turn it over to Mike Hetrick, whose feet are on the ground with customers doing this work. Mike is with a principal in our professional service organization. He's out of Virginia. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Hetrick. It's great to be here with you, all of you. Big room. Wow. So I am a solution architect on the professional services team, and I work with customers directly to implement Tableau. And I'd like to share some of the things that commonly do with customers whenever we're preparing to scale out. But even in the smallest implementation, these are things that you can do early on to change the course of the future. So first up is getting started. And if there's only one thing that you take away from today's presentation, this would be the one. Everyone can do it, regardless of the size, and the benefit will be realized by many, many people, each new licensed user. So let's walk through the scenario together. A new user needs a license. Who do they contact? What do they do once they get a license? Where do they go for support? On a larger scale, if you're the only person that's supporting new users as they come on board, there's some trouble ahead. And try as you might, there will come a point when you can't provide that high touch that you did when you first started out. The Getting Started experience is a way to connect new users with necessary resources on your intranet. You are replacing yourself with a collection of knowledge that's applicable to your organization, things that people need to know or need to do after they get a new license, such as where's training, or who else is using Tableau in my department. The goal is to think it through, make it yours, and help people understand how to use Tableau, get them over the hump, and get them more proficient. It doesn't happen overnight. But prior to the session starting, I was talking with some people in the crowd, and one of the ladies that I talked to, she said, we have Tableau. What happens next? And that's the question you need to answer for yourself. This is the first step to empowering users in your organization and building your Tableau community. So write it up and get it out there. Chances are, if you're in this room and you're working to grow adoption, you're a champion. We appreciate the work that you do. I was a champion prior to joining Tableau, and it's a critical role in the community. As Tableau champions, you see the business value of using Tableau. You know how to implement best practices and have visual best practices in mind so that you can maximize the impact of using data to make decisions. The skills pyramid develops as you enable new users and create new champions yourself. This distributes the workload. It avoids your available time becoming a bottleneck to new users using Tableau. There are those who say, well, we have champions. They know Tableau. No additional training needed. But I strongly encourage you to overinvest in champion building throughout each department so that they can build teams too. Things like classroom training or certification accelerate and qualify champions. And if your champions are not true experts, as Anthony mentioned earlier, you risk spreading bad practices instead of best practices. Often when I sit down with a new customer, they're inclined to reproduce existing crosstab reports. And the conversation goes something like, here, can you do this? Sure, I can do that. I get it. Crosstabs are familiar. They're comfortable. You've seen them for years and years and years. And it's a dump of data, and you're supposed to find your own way through it. So why not give it a new lease on life in Tableau Server? Seems like a good idea. Well, in a few rare cases it can work. And all the rest, it just doesn't. We can accomplish so much more, and I'm sure you realize this, if we dig in and do things the Tableau way. I've seen this most difficult, though, in financial use cases. Finance people, they see numbers. I'm not sure how that works, because all I see is a lot of numbers when I look at those crosstabs. Just remember, this is your opportunity to innovate, not replicate. And business value comes from having a real-time conversation with data and being in the flow of analysis, as Anthony mentioned. It takes users from visibility to insights to action. And that's why we're here. To fuel creativity and allow users to take that action on the results of their analysis, you must be responsive. Consider the obstacles that users face in a traditional BI scenario. It's a serial development process. A new question comes in. There's wait time to get the new questions answered. Customers with traditional BI systems already in place may be inclined to impose those same standards on Tableau. But it will inhibit users' ability to create and share insights. But there's a catch. IT does have the right to govern the systems they own. But the process of visual analytics, it's iterative and agile. These two seem to be in conflict with each other. So what can we do? Well, by defining policies and procedures for your production environments. The production environment typically has publishing lockdown, and there's a content promotion process that gets new workbooks or dashboards published. This is a certification process. You want to know that the number's right. You want to know that the data sources have been operationalized. You want to know that this is a reliable data product. That's why you have a production system. But at the same time, you need to support the innovation of your users. That's done through a sandbox instance, whether that be a separate site, a separate server. You need somewhere where people can prototype and freely publish. This allows us to have the best of both worlds. You can mitigate risk as administrators. You can support businesses' innovation, and you can ensure successful adoption as a result. Data problems. Everybody has them. You're not alone. That opportunity for innovation, it begins with easy access to data. Today, data is everywhere. It's at the core of what we do. And as Tableau grows across the organization, it's natural for the demand for data to overtake your ability to produce it fast enough. Over the summer, I spent several weeks with a customer. They certainly had the demand for data, but performance was lagging, and sometimes extract refreshes didn't even complete. And on the first day of the engagement, I observed 3 to 6 minute dashboard load times. They had accepted that it was just their data. Well, it wasn't just their data. It didn't have any wishes to be slow or non-performant. After conducting a data source audit, though, we identified expensive string parsing calculations and typecasting on 250 column-wide extracts, 7 million rows. There were only 10 to 20% of all the columns being used in any workbook. And when we showed the dashboard to the stakeholders, there was a guy in the room who said, "Are you going to click on something?" Well, I had clicked on something, and the feedback was instantaneous. He blinked and he missed it because he was so accustomed to the way things had been over the last several months of working with this data set. From there, we worked to operationalize the lessons learned, building that IT partnership that's so important, and push those into the other data extracts. Shows that the data really can be delivered fast, and it can even meet or exceed business expectations. Now, there are those who say this can be done without IT. Well, guess what? They're wrong. We need IT to support operations. And we need business to drive the creative analysis. Teamwork is critical to your project success. Without open communication or trying to run Tableau server on the sneak, you'll never achieve analytics at scale. A great opportunity to foster that business-IT relationship is during prototyping, where you can have that responsive real-time exchange, where you can both see the outcome of the other's work. Hopefully you have a published dashboard that's running on a published data source. It's been operationalized. on schedule, and it is creating that reliable data product that I just spoke of. So think again about that previous example. The right-sized extracts, it was a win-win. IT saw the benefits of extracts that actually completed, and they were smaller, while business saw faster response time, the instantaneous feedback, all by both sides working together. This next one isn't for everyone, unless you're ready to go big. Formation and staffing of the Center of Evangelism, representing business, and the Center of Operations, representing IT, is a deliberate decision to formalize new groups. Self-service analytics works because business users can answer business questions, and IT can focus on things like performance, security, and data integrity. From what I've seen, most companies under-resource Tableau. You may think it can almost run on its own, and perhaps it does in a small startup installation, but autopilot implementations will always fail. So when the decision is made to scale out, Tableau should be treated as enterprise software, complete with headcount, processes, and policies. Measuring success with customers is one of my favorite areas to cover. How do you know when you're achieving your business objectives? Sometimes you have to tap on the mic and say, is this thing on? Is it working? Is it doing what we set out to do? As with any major initiative, you need to set goals. And those will be different for every organization. But regardless, set those goals and measure your progress. Identify both quantitative and qualitative metrics, and consider how you'll communicate those by audience. What do executive sponsors need to know? What do system admins need to know, or site admins? Compliance officers and publishers. Each is a little different. So to give you some examples, capabilities. What are my organization's Tableau skills? How do I assess that? Data source expertise or business domain expertise. Am I talking to the right people to get to the right outcome? Execution time, such as the time to ramp a new user, the number of active users. What does that user engagement look like? The number of data sources and the number of views. Or cultural, perhaps the most challenging to measure, but things like job satisfaction, the use of data-driven decision-making, or confidence in the analysis. Finally, all these things add up to a strategic implementation. And while Drive provides a plan to scale out enterprise analytics, installing Tableau and completing each phase is not enough. When done right, it will transform your business. A strategic implementation requires planning and the people who are capable of using and supporting Tableau. So aim high, get all the support you need to succeed, and then over-deliver. As we were putting this presentation together, I reached out to some of my past customers. I asked them, what does adoption mean to you? How are you doing with it? And I've highlighted some key words which echo the thoughts in the previous topics. Jay Harder, a BI Solutions Manager at WestRock, talks about understanding the business user. You need to get in front of them. You need to know what's driving the business user's needs and keep that conversation open, and then designing the right visualizations for the particular analysis that you're doing. Amy Maiden, Janssen Pharmaceutical. She speaks of a close collaboration with IT and business, being able to influence organizational change. That's not easy. You can't buy influence. You need to produce things that cause that movement within the organization and then deliver value consistently. And finally, Angela Chen, Yale University. And she talks about gaining strong support, building consensus, being smart about where you focus your time and your energy, being able to prioritize and scope these future data programs. I encourage all of you to take these ideas back to your own organizations to accelerate your adoption goals.
Awesome, Mike. It's always an honor to work with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike's out there in the field, and if you can afford him, get him. So today we're going to do something really special and introduce something we call Launchpad. And I think I saw Basia out there. Basia and Mike and a small team at Tableau have been very influential in pulling this together. And we looked at Drive and we said, what is it that you can do that requires original effort, your relationships in the organization, and the work of IT on data and all of and that stuff. And what is it that is really just extra work that maybe we could do for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. And so we hatched this maniacal plan to create a new product. And this is not something that we are going to host for you, because that would involve you putting your private company information on our servers and things. And also, you've got your own IT infrastructure, right? So we want to work with that. We want you to be able to extend this in your own way, and we want to allow you to get started fast. So when it comes to discovery, you've already got a lot of what looks like the meat of the project done, right? So isn't that going to be cool when you go to the executive and say, hey, I kind of did a lot of foundation building already, and now let's talk about getting behind this program. So the idea is to give you a downloadable SharePoint solution. We're also going to work on some other platforms after this one. And you're going to start by customizing and configuring this environment, which includes some core capabilities and a lot of content. Okay, so let's just talk about the content first. So it'll include templates on data sources. It'll include templates on stuff like a resource guide. Who do I contact when I need for help? A getting started guide and what's important. You'll have a knowledge library that's syndicated from Tableau.com. So when we update our website, your website updates as well if you set approval to automatic, for instance. You'll have discussion forums, a gallery of inspiring work, and event calendars, events that we might host, and also you'll be able to add your own events to it. Integration with our support site, to make it easy for you to find answers to questions. And of course, the how to drive manual and processes around that. Now, I'm going to hit escape here and just see if we're up. Mike, would you like to come and click through some of these pages? Okay, here we go. So this is actually, we weren't sure about the internet connection here, so we just loaded these pages before we got here. Just to be clear, this is an alpha now. We're going to be doing some more work, some UI redesign. Then we're going to open up to a beta for special customers. If you'd like to come up, give us your business card or names, give them to Jeff. That would be great, or us. This is just suggesting that this is more than vapor. We're doing real work here.
You can't see anything there.
Oh, okay.
It's on extended.
Oh.
Tough one.
Okay, but now we can't see it.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, we can't see that.
All right, we're putting our heads a little bit.
Here we are. So what we have here is the Drive Launchpad homepage. And what we've done is, as I mentioned in that number one thing that I talked about, the getting started experience. How do we engage users, institutionalize information that's relevant to us? And that's where the real business value of this comes from. The Launchpad is your Tableau community. You see a scrolling carousel of viz of the days. These will be able to be customized as your own featured vizzes. And you'll notice that there are several areas down below for latest discussions. Tableau news, events, and conferences. Where might that come from? Well, we have a syndication mechanism built in so that we can push Tableau news and events such as this to you. Whenever you first come in the page, and I'm kind of reluctant to press refresh here, but let's see what happens. It worked. Notice the red, or the orange flashing button, get started. That's where we want to draw your attention. That's where we want users to come in and find some pointers on the types of things that they need to do. And let's take a look at that. I have all these tabs open. So in the Getting Started experience, learn about the culture of analytics. Watch some inspirational videos. Find out why your company's doing what they're doing. And how does it affect them? Well, they can register on the site, which is the next tab. Identify their skills. So maybe I want to find someone who is good at data modeling. Well, this is where I could do that. In much larger organizations, I've asked the question of people, how do you know who to talk to, or how do you know who has a particular skill set? They don't know. You know, they may know who on their team uses it. They may know who on their floor uses it. Maybe some water cooler talk, but it's not common knowledge who has a license, who doesn't, who has what capability, who doesn't. So this way of reporting your skills will be beneficial to getting the job done faster. So here's a visualization gallery. Get inspired. Here's where you can feature content, or as we have it here, there is viz of the day content populating the prototype. Some fast search that's built in, full text. If I could read that, it would probably help. There we go. We found something. But this is your way of cataloging. In my last long-term engagement, we spent a significant amount of time building up what was a wiki site in Confluence. But these are the types of things that we recorded. We recorded the dashboard definitions. We recorded the data source definitions. How do people know where to go and what to do after they get a license? That's the question we're trying to answer here. Okay. Go to the next tab. What should visualization look like? So here we have some templates. We have a sample dashboard and your organization's style guide. So if you have a certain look for what an ad hoc dashboard might look like versus an enterprise certified data source, here's where you could store those and reveal them to new users in one place. Next one is the list of available data sources. Gives a summary, its source, content tags, and the type of data that it is. These are the things that people want to know. If they want to connect to data, steer them towards these enterprise data sources instead of these kind of do-it-yourself ETL projects that occur when users don't have this type of information communicated to them. People can easily go to a source system, download that spreadsheet, and again, you're not growing that centralized data management or data strategy or data architecture, but rather you're encouraging them to go off the beaten path and do things on their own. So this is a good place to get all of those things together. Something else that's pretty interesting is how many of you post on the Tableau community forums? When you do, you really can't share your data, that's your company data, on the internet. However, this creates a safe place for you to discuss data within your own organization. If I want to talk about a finance issue in a calculation that I'm doing, or if I want to solicit help from other people, you can do that. We've broken it up into a few different areas so that you can get a more targeted discussion. People can help. You can mark the response as helpful or not, and really start, again, to cultivate and nurture that conversation that needs to happen within your organization as you formulate what your enterprise data strategy is, as well as how to use Tableau. Calendar of events. So here you could put things like office hours or Tableau days that we might come in and help you with. Maybe you have a regular recurring meeting for internal Tableau training, kind of getting the champions out in front of the group. Maybe you have focus groups to understand what people think about the work that's being published. So soliciting feedback, keeping the conversation open, and encouraging people to participate. That's what Launchpad is. For drivers in the organization, so if you are leading a drive program within your company, there will also be document templates. So these will help steer you in the right direction with some worksheets, helping people to have a more guided discussion whenever they're trying to plan out their drive plan. And finally, this is the member directory. So here's where you find out who else is doing what you're doing and make some new friends within your organization.
Awesome. Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much. We're running a little tight on time. I just want to get a quick show of hands in the room. Who would be interested in something like this? If we gave it to you free, would you be interested in it? All right, keep your hands up.
This is...
You know, keep your hands up. Okay, if you have two hands, that's great to hear. All right, so if you're interested in this, come give us your business cards or contact information. We'll reach out to you. We're under heavy development right now. You can see that we made a lot of tremendous progress in the last few months. Thank you, Basia. And we look forward to making this generally available sometime in Q1. Thank you so much for coming to this conference, for supporting Tableau, and for thinking about taking Tableau big using the Drive methodology. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.